Hey, it's Lindsey with Rhino Rose, and today we're gonna go through my medical history. At this age, when I was young, doctors told my mom that I would never walk. Later on, I was told I would never have kids. I would never be able to run. Yeah, if you follow at Rhino Rose, you know a lot about me and my past and what I've been through. And so I was just thinking last week, I was like, I really haven't talked about that in a while, or really in depth. I've never really did a YouTube video on this, and I thought, you know, it could probably help a lot of people. So yeah, it's like, where do I start? Oh my goodness, I guess I start at the beginning. And I guess I want to start off by saying, I feel like I don't share a whole lot on social media all the time because I'm always try to look at the bright side and always be positive. But I love my story because I feel like God's given me this testimony to encourage others. And a lot of times I'll say my past, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change all my medical problems. I wouldn't change it because it made me who I am. So I like to start out with that, but I will share. People DM me all the time, and it's like, hey, my child has to catheterize. I'm like, me too. And I just kind of share my heart and tell them, you know, my journey and where that started. And so that's what this video is for kind of today. So my mom is going to come today and be with me, but she's sick. So I'm going to try to tackle this a lot. It's a lot, and so I hope I'm accurate when I say everything. So some medical professional will be like, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, I'm trying to piece it all together. It's just a lot. So let's start at the beginning. So my mom always tells me kind of where it started was, I was a few months old, and I pulled some pictures, and this is about the age that I was, about 6 months. And she had her mommy gut, like something's wrong. Something's not right with Lindsey. I wasn't crawling. I wasn't, hitting all those milestones. And so she took me to the doctor, and through tests and all that, they realized I was born with a tumor on my spine. It was benign. It was a fatty tumor. It was tethering my spinal cord down. And so when it says May 85, so when I was about 8 months old, let me cover my booty, I had my first spinal surgery. So that's kind of where it all started. I have scars all up and down my body, front, back. But yeah, this is part of it who's made me who I am. So when they went in to remove the tumor, my spinal cord was tied down. And of course, every time you go into a surgery, you know there's gonna be risk. Of course, something can happen, something bad can happen. So of course you sign all the paperwork, but one of the first surgeries, they did some damage, and so nerves were pulled. And so you probably hear me talking about it all the time, where I don't have feeling on the back of my legs, the bottom of my feet, my rear, anywhere down here, no feeling. And that's just been always the norm for me. So started off, tumor on my spine. I was born with a neurogenic bladder. So basically that means is I can't go to the bathroom. I can't urinate by myself, so I have to catheterize. I catheterize every 4 hours. And this is something I've always done since I was born. Not since I was born, since all of this. I guess since I was 6 months or whatever, they figured out all of this. But I've known it all my life. All the life that Lindsey remembers, I've catheterized, and that's normal to me. I wouldn't change it because this is me, this is my normal, and this is just how I do it. Okay, so this is my cutie pouch, and I told you I was gonna show you my tubes. So these are my catheterizing tubes. I have to use these when I go to the bathroom, of course. I can't just go to the bathroom myself. I used to have red rubber tubes that were like this long, and I had to stuff them in my backpack when I was at school, or stuff them in a purse. Yeah, like I told you in the video, me and Whitney used to have cutting parties where we would just cut hundreds of tubes at a time, because I'm cathing every 4 hours. And then when I was pregnant, I was cathing every hour. But praise Jesus, they make better tubes now where I'm not having to cut them, and they just fit nicely in my pouch, and I can close it up. So even like elementary school and high school I was able to go, catheterize myself in the bathroom by myself. But in elementary school, I always had to go to the nurse and they had to help me. So that was normal for me back then. But yeah, like I said, I wore diapers until I was, or pull-ups, I wore pull-ups until I was in high school. But I'm glad, I was able to get off them. And then when I was full cycle, when I got pregnant, I wore them again. But yeah, most people don't know that about me. And I'm not, like, I'll tell anybody. So one thing that I think is kind of interesting is when, as y'all know, I was an interpreter for the deaf and a teacher for the deaf, and I worked at White Station. And one of the reasons I loved working there, is one of the reasons I worked there, but also for insurance. Even when I started working and creating Ryan and Rose, like the thing was insurance, because catheterizing tubes are so expensive, like thousands of dollars a month. And so I kind of have a story I've told you in my stories and on my feed once, is how I kept working as a teacher for insurance. And what's crazy is, like, I had to learn that, like, I don't have to live of the world. I can live, God's gonna provide for me. And what I learned, so we got off, I quit teaching, and I had Cobra insurance. I was paying like $1,600 a month. Ridiculous. And then I was still having to pay like $250. It was a lot of money for tubes. I'll have to go back to that post to look at what it is. But what's crazy is I went to that where I bought my tubes, and they were like, Lindsey, we can't ethically charge you this. And I was like, well, I don't have insurance anymore, like, because we were getting off Cobra. And they're like, I can't charge you. And I was like, what do you mean? So like, I, as a human being, I would feel horrible if we charged you for this. Here's another company, and I pay outright my tubes for $100 a month. But I was being charged through my insurance for thousands. Take that for you. It was just mind blowing. I'm like, wow, I was working all these longer than I really wanted to for insurance for tubes, when, like, God provided me a cheaper way. And now I pay less money with no insurance than I ever did with it. It's just mind blowing. So if you also need questions of where I get my tubes, let me know, because I'll tell you. They've been great. So it's just crazy to think, like I was telling my mom, I was like, people, and me included, was so, I have to have insurance. And yes, you do need insurance. We're on MediShare. But like I was so focusing my life around insurance, and it was like, why are you doing that? Like, that was like, looking back, it's like I was crazy. But yeah, now I get tubes for like $100 a month, and it's amazing. And they're the same exact tubes I was getting when I had to pay $1,000 a month. So yeah, so I had a neurogenic bladder. I had a lot of bladder surgeries. Another thing that happened when I was in kindergarten, my grandparent, my Nana, forgot to catheterize me, because of course I'm in kindergarten. I'm not responsible enough to, tell myself you need to go to the bathroom. So my Nana thought she catheterized me. My dad catheterized me. My dad thought my Nana did. And so I went to school, and I was on the playground, and I passed out, and my bladder ruptured. So then you can see down, what year was that? Oh my goodness. 1990, 1990, repair a ruptured bladder. So I used my bowels to rebuild my bladder. So like, my biggest thing, it's crazy, because a lot of people will look at me now and they're like, you don't even look like you've had any, like, nothing's wrong with you. And but I remember my dad, when I was going in to be a freshman, he was like, Lindsey, you've got to get off diapers. You've got to get off pull-ups. So for me, that was like my crutch. That was just like my safety blanket. Like, no, Dad, I can't do that. But I did, even when, most people don't know this, but when me and Brett started dating, I was wearing diapers. Like, and he knew, and he loved me anyways, which it makes him even more incredible. But yeah, all of those things in my life made me who I am. And I think one of the things I'm also grateful for is I'm grateful that my parents pushed me. They never let me see myself as anything different. Yes, I was special. Yes, I got a lot of attention. Yes, I was always in the hospital, but they they pushed me. They let me cheer. They let me play sports. They didn't act like anything was wrong with me. And I'm not saying like, I think everybody's situation is different, but I think just having that mentality of this is Lindsey and she's gonna do all that she can, but she's not gonna let anything stop her. So I feel like I've always had that, I'm gonna cry. I've always had that mentality that I can do anything. Why am I crying? Why am I crying? So I hope this video like shows kids and shows others that like whatever life gives you, you got this. You can do this. Depend on Jesus and give him your all, and he's gonna get you through it, because it's hard like being the CEO of Ryan & Rose, of a multi-million-dollar business, and it's just like when I look back at where I've come from, like I was a C student. I had learning disabilities. Like I was in resource all through elementary school, middle school, high school. Like I struggled with reading. I had an IEP. Like it doesn't matter. Like if you work hard and you keep pushing it, and you can do all things are possible to those who believe. So we had bladder issues. We had spinal cord issues, and then I had feet issues. I know a lot of y'all know about my feet. So the left foot is a size 4 and the right foot is a size 7.5. You can also see the size of my legs. I grew up always wearing braces on my left leg. I never was able to build that muscle back up. But yeah, I just embrace it, and that's just who I am. And people are like, do you buy 2 pair of shoes? Rarely. I know my mom did growing up. Like my mom, if I did have like a nice pair of tennis shoes, like she would buy me 2. I always had inserts. In my shoes. I think, and here you can see I called them the Forrest Gump braces. I had the braces that went around my waist, down my legs. There's another picture. I actually still have this scar. I wore this plastic brace, and for the longest time, you could still see the scar right there. There it is, up and down, barely there. But yeah, I was always in braces, always had something to do. Dr. Snell, what's so crazy is I saw him. I was visiting one of my deaf students at Le Bonheur, and I saw him and he remembered me, and I'm like 35 now, he still remember me, and I remembered him, and it was just such a cool moment. But he did all the braces. But yeah, I grew up in the hospital at Le Bonheur. I was on the Le Bonheur telethon a long time ago. Man, if we could find that footage. But yeah, that was like the norm for us. So I had crazy feet surgery. So I really don't have any. I have cavus feet. I had Jones hip surgery. So basically my toes, I can't grip my toes. I have full, function on my right foot, but not on my left foot. I actually have a screw in this toe. So you can see my scars right here. I have a scar there, scar here, and then I have a scar all the way here. And then I used to have, kind of have a scar right there. And then I have really high arches. Really makes it hard to get into shoes sometimes. But I have no functionality of my toes. I can't bend them. And even when I worked at White Station, 6 years ago, I broke my toe and I had to have another surgery. And what they end up doing is breaking all, because all my toes, when I was a kid, I had claw feet. So I walked on my toes. And then the braces that I talked about is because my feet were turned in. So it was trying to get my feet the right way. But even just recently, I had a surgery where they broke all my toes. You can see all the scars all the way across. So they broke all my toes and then put them back together with pins. So you can see the scar here, there, and there. And that wasn't too long ago. But yeah, of course, growing up, I hated that I couldn't wear cute shoes, but it's who I am. It's fine. It'll be okay. It's not a big deal. Never wear heels, but I can sport me some flip-flops all day, every day. But yeah, like I said, I'm so grateful for my mom and my dad and pushing me and not letting me think. I mean, I knew it was different and I knew I was special, and I say that in a positive term because I embrace it. Like, we should teach our kids to like be different, be special, be who you are, and use your testimony to encourage others and lift people up and say, you can do it. Because I remember when I taught at White Station, I loved telling them my story. Even though I'm hearing, I had so much to relate to them. Like, hey, you're different. People tell you can't do things. Like, do it anyway. Like, you got this, you know. I was an IEP kid. They're IEP kids. Like, don't let people stop you. Don't let people tell you can't do something. I remember in my classroom, they couldn't say the word can't. It was just, they would get in trouble if they said can't, because we have to train our minds to be like, I can do this. I can do this. Even on all of our packaging, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's not on our packaging. All things are possible to those who believe. That's on our packaging. But 2 verses that I use in my daily life all the time. Telling yourself you can do it, pushing through hard things, having hard conversations, and being the best you. So I love being a teacher for the deaf, being able to tell them my testimony and being like, look, I was in resource. I too had reading problems. I struggled through high school. Luckily, when I got to college, I don't know if it was like the maturity level, but it was just like, it just clicked. I remember my freshman reading class, because I had to go into pre-college. Like, I wouldn't even make good enough grades to go straight into college. I had to take all those pre-college classes that you didn't get credit for, like the reading and yes, but those trained me to be able to graduate cum laude, the top of my class in college. Like, it was just crazy. But yeah, so like they thought, I know I have a lot of mamas who have children with spina bifida. So just to give you a little bit about me, so they thought I had like all the characteristics of a child with spina bifida, but I didn't actually have spina bifida. I didn't have the gap in the spine. I just had the tumor on my spine. But I did have the learning disabilities. I did have the neurogenic bladder. I did have the nerve damage. I did have the feet issues. All of that. So I can relate to a lot of spinal cord individuals. I also was going to show you, I have this medical records binder. This is like all of it in one. And I was going through it yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in here. My mom was so organized and had like this sheet, because every time we go to the doctor, they're like, what's your medical history? And you're like, okay, you want me to start from the beginning? Because it's a lot. So I remember going to the doctors, and it kind of stops at 95, but you know, that's a long time ago. But altogether, I think I've had 25 surgeries. I feel like for the longest time we said 23, and then I had another surgery as an adult, and then I had the C-section, which I guess is technically a surgery. So now we're at 25. I'm 35 years old. So, I was going through my binder, my medical binder, and yesterday, and I was kind of reading, and I think I started crying a few times because you forget all the stuff that you go through, you know? And so this one, I don't know if you know, but I had a miscarriage, and we went through, well, first, before the miscarriage, I went to an infertility doctor. I got on Clomid, and I was just really not a nice person. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get a divorce if I keep taking this medicine. So like, I knew, prayed, and the Lord was like, you don't need this. So we got off on it. And then we ended up getting pregnant ourselves. We did have a miscarriage, but I felt like during that time, God was telling me, it's not your time. See, you can get pregnant, it's just not your time. And it's crazy now to think that I would have like a 14-year-old, you know, like I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that. Like, and I wasn't ready, because when I had that miscarriage, that's when I went back and got my master's. I went back and became a teacher for the deaf, and it was like, it was God's plan. We bought a house, the evergreen house where we had built Ryan and Rose in. It was just, I couldn't have done that and had a child. And so having a child would have took us a totally different route. So I'm saying this, God's timing is perfect. But anyways, I was going through this and I was reading this. Oh, here it is. It says, should we go see a fertility doctor now? So this had to be before Dr. Key. This had to be before the fertility doctor. I said, I don't want to wait too long. I just wish I knew if there was even a possibility. I've been crying. If there wasn't, I would get back on the shot and adopt. Because adoption was always a part of our plan. It was always like being told even at age 16, I remember being at the doctor and the doctor telling me next month, I'm 16, and he's like, you'll never be able to have kids. And it's like, how am I supposed to handle that? Like, one, I'm not ready for kids, but like, I'm 16, dude. Like, what are you? I'm not mentally ready to take that type of information. So from 16 on, and even younger than that, like I always was told you couldn't have kids, you can't have kids, you can't have kids. But Brett and his family just they taught me how to believe and trust in the Lord and just depend on him. And like, that's where God provided, and he showed us all things are possible. But it's funny because it says, I've gained 10 pounds. It's depressing. But yeah, I was on the depot shot because of being catheterizing and having to be on your period. It was not fun. So I was on the depot shot for like 8 years. And then that was another reason they were saying that it was probably hard for me to get pregnant, because a lot of times when people are on the shot for so long, it's hard to get that out of your system. But yeah, we did have a miscarriage, and I'm so grateful. I mean, I'm not grateful for that miscarriage, but it was like God's, just how it all happened. Like, God's timing's perfect, and it reminded me of that. It taught me that, and like, it's got us to where we are today. And I can't imagine it any differently. I know miscarriage is such a sad and hard thing to accept, and I don't wish it on anybody, nobody. But it's, I have experienced that, and I've felt that loss before. But I had hope that God, he was going to provide, and his timing was perfect. And I mean, I feel like our story shouts that. But yeah, it was just really crazy going through this. It was crazy as I forgot. I was telling Trent, I was like, wow, even just like after college, we were talking about one thing. They said, once you finish growing, my spinal cord is still tethered. So like they still wanted to go in, because I was having so much back pain, to go in and let it go. But it was kind of like, to the point, it was like, I don't know if I'm willing to take that risk. Do I want to risk the risk of not walking ever again? And like, oh no, I'll take the pain. I'll take the pain. And even like, I remember in college, we talked about putting a sling and catheterizing through my belly button. And I'm glad we didn't do that. But that was just kind of all through this, looking through that. I think one thing that really, when you have kids and you put yourself in your parents' shoes, like, I remember the first time I did that, I was like really emotional, like trying to imagine what my mom went through, a single mom raising 3 girls on her own, working hard, and then you have this child with all these medical needs, and it's really expensive and it's stressful. And so mad props to my mom. Thinking about if this had ever happened to Charlie or Ryan, it's hard for my mommy heart to handle that. So I know there's a lot of moms out there like you who are going through these things, and it's hard, and it's just, it's like, why me? And I mean, I think one of the reasons, like, I never really like complained, or I never really complain about these things that I've had in my life. It's because I've always thought somebody has it harder than I do. I should be grateful. I should be grateful that I walk. I should be grateful that I can run. I should be grateful that I can even use the bathroom, because there's a lot of people who can't do those things. And so I feel like as individuals, people always have it harder, and just be grateful for what we have and what we can do. But even like with my parents, like, yeah, I can't thank them enough for pushing me. Push your kids. And not like a bad pushing, but I'm just saying, like, encourage them. Like, I love Courtney and Webb, because Carter is in a wheelchair and he has a walker, but like, they let him play football, and they let him do things, and they let him be who he wants to be in himself. And he is the coolest kid. He's the coolest kid ever. I'm gonna cry again. Why am I crying? But it is. So many of our kids are just amazing, and I just hope they can see how amazing they are. Because why am I so emotional? I don't know. I'm so emotional. But yeah, I'm grateful. And I think that's what's cool, is like, God's given me this platform to show others, like, hey, you can do this. You can do all things, and you're gonna have a great life, and just stay positive. I think the mental the mental part of it is such the most important part. If you're a negative parent, it's gonna be brought down to your kids. So you got to speak that positivity in your kid's life, and you got to say, you can do this, you can do this, you can do that. I mean, I'm even having to do that with Ryan, and she has no medical issues, but like just encouraging her, like, Ryan, you got this, you got this, you can do this. You have to train them to be able to think this way. So yeah, so that's me, and that's like a big jumbled up medical, like I just threw it at you all in a not order and all over the place, but I do hope that's encouraged someone, and like again, I said, please DM me because I would love to talk more. So